Our recognitions tonight, so we have a young man now, so she's going to come up to the podium. So Kayla, stand back, come on up, guys. I'll just say a few words too. We wanted to invite you tonight because you exemplify a reader profile. You're not only a passionate student, but you excel in the area of basketball with 1,000 points. That's amazing. And congratulations to the entire team. That really also shows the dedication, but also the ability to work together, which is something we're always really focused on. So I'm going to turn it over to Coach Taya. I'm sure he has a few words. And then if you'd like to speak, you're also welcome to speak.
A few words.
Okay.
Yeah, so when Mrs. Pascal asked me if I'd come tonight, I jumped in. I said, absolutely, even though it's the first night of the NCAA tournament. The game schedule, but I was like, of course I'd be there for Matt. But I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we were one of the last schools to get 1,000-point banner. We had kind of the old school mindset that it's, the team and the numbers on the wall that matter more than the individual. But if anybody's looked at that banner, and you look at the banners of all the sectional championships, the league championships, it's like 50 years of excellence that we've had in our program, and there's only 8 names on there for the boys basketball team. So I think it is really important to recognize those that make that achievement and that help inspire the next generation too. One of the best parts is once Matt was working really hard and playing really well and scoring all these points, and we're winning, and these kids are coming, and I know he's got a cousin here tonight too. I came to pretty much every game, but they look at that, and then that helps fuel the next generation and keep that excellence going. So I think it's important. And for Matt too, when I look at those 8 names, I go back pretty far, but not all the way. I can't speak for John Dalzell or Adam in 91, but for the rest of them, they did it in 4 years, and Greg did it in 5 years, but Matt did it in 3. And that's really, really hard to do. As a sophomore, to come in and to put up enough points to put himself in position. And then on top of that, he came back with a serious knee injury or knee surgery over the summer, and he missed the game. And we were thinking, oh man, it's going to be tight. We played 23 games, and he needed 22 of those to get there, but he did it. I'm so incredibly proud because when you guys come to the games, you see him making the shots and scoring the points, which is awesome. But like what I saw was, he's coming back from injury, and he's texting me, hey, can we get in at 5:30 this morning to get shots up before school, because he can't do the full practice after school. It's like, absolutely, Matt. So it's just validation for Matt and all the hard work he put in. I couldn't be happier for him. So congratulations. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you to your family for setting us a wonderful student. It's terrific. And so that brings us to our second recognition. It's our art students who participated at the Columbia Community College Art Show. And we start with Benny Queen, and then November, Iowa Cobra. Did I get that right? Yeah, all right. Mrs. Schultz is coming up. Okay, good. Similar to what I said about sports, excelling in the arts is just as important to us too, showing that creativity, innovation. We're really proud that you were recognized at the college level too. So, Mrs. Schultz, if you want to say a few words.
I can't be prouder. Our whole art department is incredibly proud of these two. They've been IB students. They've been working the entire time through high school, working on their portfolios. Their work was chosen from our district, from the 3 art teachers as great examples of work that we're very proud of. So they went to Columbia Green Community College and were recognized for the work there. There's about 19 schools that bring, we're all allowed 2 works of art per school to bring. And Betty received honorary mention, and November's work was certainly, Brittany was talking about that as well. They're just incredible, but not only are they really incredible with their portfolios and their artwork, they're just genuinely amazing people. I mean, I get to spend a lot of time with them. They work with Mrs. Larson as well, and Mr. Monson sat on the students. But they come into my room a lot. I've just been blown away with how respectful and helpful and kind to everybody. So overall, just amazing people to be around, and very proud of getting to work with them over these years. So thank you for the recognition. It makes me very happy to see them being recognized for their work and for just great human beings. So.
Heather, can you pull up their artwork?
No, it's a,
Okay.
yeah. No.
It's exceptional. And similar, thank you for being wonderful students. Like you said, it's just so important to also be compassionate and empathetic. Also talented. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's part of the night, that's what it's all about, right? So that brings us to our student board of ed members.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh, I missed my supporter. I apologize. Colleen Lynch, regards to principal at Red Hook High School. She's being honored tonight. Dr. Rodney will come up and talk about that.
So I'm going to talk. But you're going to come up. You're going to come here so we can talk about you. So we're really incredibly proud to share that Colleen, our assistant principal at Red Hook High School, has been named the 2026 New York State Secondary School Assistant Principal of the Year. So that means across the entire state, she was nominated by the principal and myself, and she has won that award as the best assistant principal in New York State. She'll be going on to Washington, D.C. to represent assistant principals across the country.
I think
So we have that representation.
we should have one once I wrote down.
New York, we have a couple of parties along the way for that as well. But most importantly, you're an exceptional colleague, thought partner. She really cares deeply about the students in the school. I think that's number one, that Mrs. Lynch relates to the students in the school very well. Anytime that you go into her office space, there's always a student there that she is really giving good directions to, but also just showing some empathy and compassion about what they need to be doing. She's also very smart with instructional design, way classrooms should look, and really looking towards the future of what education should look like. So not only is she an excellent educator, she's also just a really great person that cares deeply for every single student that walks through the door. So we also want to play the video. She doesn't know about this. We're going to play the video that the students made.
Sorry.
Yes, I know. We're going to play the video that some of you may have seen on Facebook, but this really, the words of students is really what's most profound when they talk about Mrs. Lynch.
Mrs. Lynch so much. I've never had like a special bond with a teacher like anyone before like I have with her. But this Lynch is just the best. She advocates for everyone here at school. This Lynch is one of the most kindest humans in the school. She is always like around the hallways and interacting with students, and she always says hi.
She's a really good person, and she's always like, sometimes like a bad day or something, she'll always reach out and like come up to me and ask me if I'm all right and stuff.
She makes such a great effort to connect with like every single student and connects on such a personal level.
In the hallways when they have to get going, or she'll check in like, oh, how's the college application process going? This like cares so much about students. She's always there for whoever. She's always making us laugh, always being supportive, and really it's just an amazing human to have in the building.
Every time she sees me in the hallway, she makes a joke about I'm always throwing dolls and we laugh about it.
My freshman year, she was like also like new to the school. I couldn't open the locker and she helped me open my locker. And it was like I was very stressed because I was new. But it definitely made an impact on my head and the rest of my career, we definitely changed. I was allocated like parking spot. In the summer, she like came by, like to me, was just talking to me about how I was, like, had like difficult spring, so she's asked me how like everything was going, like whatnot. Me and my friends were in the hallways, we were going to the study hall. And this one she came into and grabbed a couple of us and come with me. And she had a big box of ice cream and she yelled, and that's just one of the ways that this lunch cares about you as a person, and really like wants to make your day better.
This lunch is out now in a lot of situations. It's just really kind of everyone's.
I was like taking an after school class and like we need somebody to eat for it in the hallway. And she came by and like was asking me about it and we had like a 30-minute conversation where she was just like asking me about the material and like engaging with me on like something that I think about, and she like connected it to her life and we just had like a really like fulfilling conversation.
She just always knows it's like going on and it's just always making connections and it's just really meaningful to have that during the day.
Congratulations, Miss Lynch.
Congratulations, Miss Lynch. Congratulations, Miss Lynch.
Congratulations, Miss Lynch.
Congratulations, Miss Lynch. Congratulations, Miss Lynch. Love you.
Thank you, Miss Lynch. And congratulations.
I want to add that I always think of this poem when I think of you, or more just saying, like, never underestimate like, the power of like a word or a gesture. And that's you. Like, you read the students, you go up to them, and you actually care what they think and what they're saying, how the day really is. And obviously they feel that way too. So we are so excited for you. We congratulate you. We appreciate everything that you do for our students. And we look forward to celebrating it throughout the year.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to recognize me tonight. I feel very honored, and I feel honored to be able to come to a district every day and work with the most outstanding students, a very supportive board, a dynamic building leader who I have to thank for this nomination. So thank you, Dr. Roddy, and I appreciate your continued support. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't mind. Forgot the session.
All right, so now, if anyone needs to go, we understand. There we go. So. Thank you for coming out, we appreciate it.
I put it up on the board.
There you go. All right, so that brings us to our student board of ed members and their remarks. So they're going to talk about what happened.
This past weekend, the volleyball happened and it was phenomenal. Everyone in it was so great and there were so many younger kids in it, which really helped us get the seniors were so talented and other clubs. It's great. So just like shout out to all of them, that was amazing. For some student council updates, we just had our Shamrock sale for St. Patrick's Day this past Monday. It was a huge success with all of our free shakes selling out. We have also started planning even more upcoming events with the teacher appreciation event, a table at Apple Blossom, and events for Global Volunteer Month. We've also started looking into finally planning an NYX USA District Board Conference held at Summers High School sometime in the near future, hopefully.
We had originally planned to do it last year, but there were some scheduling conflicts with the summer, so we had to push it back a little bit. And we're pretty excited for this opportunity. I think it allows us to experience a scale down version of the statewide conference and maybe encourage more students to attend the one in November, whose theme is revolutionizing leadership. So we're very excited for that as well. So the winter sports just wrapped up and then spring sports happen the next week. So we're now in the spring sports season, everybody's in the preseason. So we're looking forward to some games coming up and getting through the final spring season of the year, but super excited for lacrosse and softball games. This past Monday, juniors took the SAT, and we're anxiously waiting for results, which will come out on April 16th. Hopefully good results. And then seniors, they're starting to hear back from the last couple colleges in these next couple weeks. And decision days slowly approaching. So super excited to see everybody's done on the
Stay out of trouble.
And then IB students and AP students getting ready for those exams in May. So that'll be coming up pretty quickly after spring break, I think. And then, as we all know, I'm sure we're very excited for it. Spring break is coming up in just over a week. I'm sure lots of students are looking forward to a nice break to catch up on studying, travel, and we have the Europe trip for many students at the high school who I'm sure they're very excited for, and there will be amazing opportunities and some amazing places. You are? Are you excited? Last thing is this Sunday, there is a Harlem Winners basketball game against teachers and staff at 6 o'clock at the fundraiser for the class of 2026. I believe it's our last one before part of graduation and all that. So hopefully you get a good turnout for them. So looking forward to that. So thank you for having us.
Fantastic, lots of good things going on. And as always, ladies, I know that if you need to go home, study, and if you're very conscientious students, you're more than welcome to leave. And we love to have you stay, so whatever works. So that brings us to our first presentation. It's the BOE budget presentation.
Good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to see you this evening. How are you? How are you all? Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this evening. And as most of you know, but I know some of you haven't met, Dr. Revolution, the teaching superintendent of Dr. Solzi, and I'm the Early Assistant Superintendent for Business and Operations, Michael Scarrett. And we're here to discuss our 26-27 administrative budget with the Board of Education. But the highlight of our evening was getting to celebrate your students and your facilities. So thank you for that wonderful opportunity. We're always so excited when the kids get to go before us, we get to be a part of that celebration, as opposed to when people leave them behind us waiting for their turn. And we feel a bit skills. So we are here tonight to present our administrative budget, to answer any questions that you might have, and to share a little bit about where we are on our journey of innovation, partnership, and growth, and what you can expect from us as we move into the next school year. I would like to recognize this evening that we have a member of our Board of Education here with us to support us, Ms. Karen Smythe. Thank you for coming. And we know that we have 2 open seats on our board for next year. We have Mr. Mike Wheel, who is retiring, and Mr. Bryce Holland, who is not running for re-election. So the deadline, so have 1 day for nominations is March 20th. And at that time, I just want to get the dates right. Our annual meeting will be held in our conference center on April 8th. We hope some of you will consider joining us for the annual meeting. It's at 4:30 p.m. in our conference center, followed by a dinner prepared by our culinary students. So it would be wonderful if you want to join, just let your clerk know and she'll share that with us. We will vote on the budget and on the candidates on April 28th. Absolutely. Okay, awesome. So I get to come back and do the fun stuff later. I mean, I would like some to do the fun stuff now when we talk about numbers, but I'm gonna go ahead and press this over to Mike to talk a little bit about numbers.
Thank you, Dr. Galusha, and I'm a Ron Valley grad, so I've always enjoyed coming to Red Hook, except when I played you guys basketball. You never get over those. But yes, I learned tonight because none of us were going to get 5:30. You know, thank you very much, Dr. Galusha. Pleasure to be here. I know the sacrifice that it makes the board members. 5 years for giving up the meeting, so we're going to try to move relatively quickly. We'll leave some time at the end for questions, but obviously we have any questions as I move throughout, feel free to jump in. So our budget timeline, as you see on the board, is limited to just a couple items. We really start in the fall, like even school districts do, where we really start thinking about the services that districts may need for the following school year. A little tough in the BOCES because we're trying to project rates and build our rate structure for services that you haven't even signed up for yet, and likely won't start utilizing until the fall. But the reality is we need to be able to, by January, publish our services guide, that'll have our rates in it, and also provide service request forms to the school districts, and you can start using our information to build your budget. By April 3rd, I asked for those service request forms to come back. Need a little bit more time to certainly work with you. And that's just kind of a snapshot. It gives us the ability to start planning our staffing for the coming year, to look at the vendor contracts that we might need to service your needs. And it gives us about a month or month and a half to kind of work within our own teams, but also with the school districts to make sure that it's as tight as it can be for our board to approve our initial budget, which I joke 5 minutes after they approve it, it's outdated because there's going to be some change in the requested service level almost right out of the chute. As Dr. Galusha mentioned, on April 28th, we'll ask the component districts to vote not only on our administrative budget, but also on the candidate for our board. Tonight, we're really going to talk about the administrative budget. We have an administrative budget, we have capital allocation, and everything else to those things. You're going to decide to purchase based on the needs and the wants of your school district. But one thing that you have to vote on is really our administrative budget. So we're going to focus our attention there tonight. And then by June 10th, I'll ask our board to approve, again, our initial budget. I'll submit that to SCD and we'll immediately start working on changing that, on the changing needs of the districts. This is just a pie chart. Again, we'll talk about administration, but I always feel like it's somewhat important to show the districts really are individual kind of program departments. It's about $125 million in terms of overall revenues. The largest share being the lower right-hand quadrant there, the yellow pie, LLP from the pie, our special alternative education program. Kind of moving counterclockwise, DPE stands for career and technical education. So that's a trade program that's to do with the probably very familiar with. Just under 10%. Capital and administration at the very top there. Small slivers, but okay, we'll talk about that anyway. Cross contracts will be services that your district takes out with other BOCES. The largest one that we have is the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center over at Ulster BOCES. Many districts will purchase a lot of their information technology services through the RIC. Management services would be things like school safety and security, public information officer services, things like that. Learning technologies would be the equipment and the software and hardware programs you'll purchase to meet not only your instructional needs, your non-instructional needs, and then ed resources is really our curriculum and professional development. Our key budget assumptions, obviously, we have to build a budget and start with assumptions just like school districts do. We have a teacher's contract that will end June 30th. So obviously a successful negotiation that balances not only a fair agreement with our teachers and related staff within that contract, but also the needs of our district and our needs to be approved with the budget. Going to be really imperative. Health insurance, we're a part of the Dutchess Educational Health Insurance Consortium, just like Red Hook. We're one of 24 members, and what we have with both, obviously, we need to conclude. And there's just under the same percent, we use 9.9, just clear better than that. That's from active and retirees, and I'll talk a little bit about that skew between active and retirees in just a minute. Strategic investments in our CTE programming, both instructional technologies and instructional equipment. We want kids to leave our trade programs and ultimately join the workforce, having worked on the equipment and using the types of technologies that they're going to use when they ultimately are employed, and right from seamlessly from our programs into the workforce. We're seeing more and more special ed referrals, especially at the lowest level. These are up with 120 or 130 few more referrals last year. If you were to visit our campus, you'd see that we basically have space in everything. How are we going to meet those needs of those students around the campus? We're seeing growth in early college and dual enrollment programs. How are we going to ultimately satisfy your needs as you look to build out those programs moving forward? We're rolling out a new safety and security service. We're really actually enhancing the safety and security service that we had previously. It's going to be really great for the region. No one can guarantee safety, so we think that ultimately we'll be able to put you in a position with everything possible. And then lastly, our budget obviously increases throughout the year. Traditionally, as we add more students, we add more service. But on those line items, we're static, and you have some budgets where we have fixed supply lines, fixed contractual lines. We want to have the same cost containment structure that you guys do ultimately in the school district. You have more of a fixed revenue structure. We want to have those same sort of parameters in places we're building our budgets. There's a lot of line items for the administrative budget. Obviously, I've tried to distill it down just to make it easier to look at. Our total budget increase year over year will be 4.14%. I mentioned earlier that the health insurance increase that we're using is 9.9. And 3/4 of our administrative budget is retiree health insurance. So we're pretty proud of the 4.14% number there. I'll talk about pieces here in just a second. Non-retiree administrative expense. This is really the cost to kind of run the BOCES from the administrative, from the central office on a day-to-day basis. It's our Board of Education, it's our superintendent's office, our deputy superintendent, business office, and HR functions. So the active employees increase there of 1.09%. We really try to keep our finger on the cost structure there year over year. And then retiree health insurance. So within the DHIC rates, I mentioned 9.9% average. The Medicare rates are a little bit lower. And most of our retirees are Medicare eligible, so we actually gain a benefit from that. And it's important that I highlight that regardless of where the employee works during their employment at the BOCES, by law, their health insurance cost needs to be moved into the administrative budget upon retirement. So we're obviously very dependent upon those DHIC rates, and traditionally, as those rates move, our administrative budget goes, we can kind of see that. In terms of revenue, so once we have a budget, obviously we look at the revenue. Our sources of revenue come from charges to our components and other revenue. Our other revenue comes from two sources. One, we get a payment from the DHIC consortium. We alleviated providing with financial support for that. But the much bigger share is interest income. We're seeing interest rates drop year over year, and I'm shocked if they actually drop a little bit. So I'm expecting about a $30,000 reduction in other revenue year over year. That $30,000 gets added to the share that the districts need to pay. So the district share is actually 4.94% here, just below 5%. How we divide that cost up to our school districts is also dictated by law. We must use a mechanism called our WADA, resident weighted average daily attendance. Probably a term you can forget after I leave here tonight, but it's essentially your enrollment. There's some waiting for secondary age students. It all comes from numbers reported by the schools. The state feels that it's a non-arbitrary way to take your administrative pie, carve it up and distribute it to your students. Highlighted in blue there is Red Hook. Euro WADA is expected to be down 28 year over year, where the county decrease is 50. So actually your share of the pie is decreasing a little bit. So your year-to-year increase is 3.27, or a little bit better than that. Next thing I want to show is capital and rent. This is an allocation to school districts, so you don't vote on this, but because it's an allocation, we want to make sure that we disclose it to you. This budget is primarily a $1 million contribution for small capital improvements. This wouldn't be a capital project. These are things like if we have a roof leak, if we have an HVAC unit go, doors, windows, things of that nature, things that are outside your operating budget. But we just kind of need to have some funds to make those fixes to keep the facility in the same or better shape than it is now. That $1 million contribution for the last 5 or 6 years. And then there's also rental fees in here. So we pay school districts, and then we have classroom care rental. We appreciate the partnership. Classroom rentals that we have in schools, we include in this budget. That's $61,200. Year over year, you're actually a $679 decrease. So down 1.3%. The last financial chart I'd like to show is our surplus in state aid. So I'd like to show on the left-hand side what the overall contract was. With Red Hook last year was just a hair over $4 million. On that $4 million, we received surplus back of 265. And surplus is any revenues in excess of expenditures. Traditionally, we'll see this if we're able to increase our enrollment, we're able to put another kid in the classroom. We typically don't need to hire another teacher or make it any more heat or light. Those additional revenues that we drive can typically come back in the form of surplus. Unlike schools, we can't keep an unreserved fund balance. Every penny that we have, every penny of revenue we have that exceeds expense has to go back to the school district. We start again in July. That's kind of what makes it fun at the BOCES. It also kind of puts pressure on us to do the right thing year over year for you. And then in the middle is your state aid, 1.175 million of state aid received on services that you have with us for 1.44 million kind of all funds coming back on that $4 million track. Right, so it's 35.5%. I got a little caveat there that special ed services are actually paid directly back to the school, so that percentage in that account is actually a little bit higher. I don't have visibility to exactly receive back in high cost aid, so I exchange that a little bit over. With that, included kind of the financial piece of Dr. DeLucia, I turn it back over to the funds.
Mr. Scared might have a different definition of under fun. So this is what makes it fun at the BOCES for me. So we have wonderful partnerships with Red Hook, and we have Red Hook students in a lot of our programs, and we like to share the numbers with you so you know where they are. So our special and alternative education program, which is in our high school, we have 3 students in our resilience academy, and we have 1 student in our Salt Point Center, which is our K-8 special education center. And we have 36 students in our career and technical institute. We have 6 students in our electrical trades program, 5 in the HVAC, 4 in cosmetology, 3 nursing assistant, 3 small engine technologies, and 15 that Mike likes to call assorted others, which means there's 1 or 2 students across a lot of different programs. So March 5th was my technical official 1-year anniversary in this role as the district superintendent. And in April, we really did embark on this journey, and it's been language we repeated an innovation partnership and growth. And we've really taken a lot of steps to move forward and make progress when it comes to innovative practices and innovative services, designing new space. So we undertook at that time the process for our blueprint for excellence, and you can see behind me that we identified through stakeholder input 4 priority areas for the agency. The first priority area really defines BOCES as a central service hub. So what we really mean by that is we want to stay everybody's first call, and if somebody gives a call, we want to find a way to make whatever it is that they need to be successful happen. And really, our primary goal as we work through this document and in thinking about the design of what we do is to continue to expand and enhance opportunities for those students who are often furthest from them, right? And so we want to be able to help our school districts do that. We're also that central service piece for the state education department. So that's the first goal. The second is really about talent management and development, and that's really about people, right? And so we often serve with a kind of civil service in our districts. And I think coming up in April is our first educator's job fair at that's both civil service and certificated positions. And we'll have sessions through civil service for folks to learn more about what. Student engagement and experiences is where the hub of our work obviously lives. We're really excited to continue to provide as many services as possible and offer expanded opportunities. A great example of that is that just today, our director of CTI came right into our cabinet meeting. Just so excited because they just finished installing their ambulance simulator in our EMT program, which is very cool. It's like there's a literal ambulance in the middle of the classroom. They wouldn't let me try this. And we continue to really try to enhance what we're doing to align We're also really working hard to expand our partnerships. For example, our partnerships with our colleges and universities through dual enrollment and a partnership with IBM and their quantum labs. We've been able to provide a lot of opportunities for students. They heard Mike say that we are a little bit out of space, and I do thank the leadership team here who's been very generous in helping some of us relocate as we've had some work done in our administration building. Some numbers that I share that just help to understand this, we're trying to provide opportunities for students who are furthest from them. We just did an analysis of our kindergarten enrollment referrals. And in 2022, coming out of COVID, we had 85 referrals in that year for kindergarten alone. In 2025, we had 180 referrals. We're able to accept approximately 40 students in kindergarten. And that's a lot of babies who don't have placements. It's actually kind of a jaw-dropping number of babies who have to go back to districts. Districts have to find a way to try to support their needs. And often we're not the first BOCES that a district might reach out to for that referral, right? So we are trying very hard for to move forward with space utilization study and to try to understand how we can continue to expand programming. We do have a space utilization study up on our page, pcboc.org. It's one question through Thought Exchange. If you think there are programs or services you would want to see us offering, please take the time to respond to that. And we'll be seeing a lot of stakeholder input as we move forward. We cannot accept another class for students in that's all grade centers. And if we need this current room of kindergarten without doing anything, we can't accept as many kindergarten classrooms next year. So it's really important for us to take this in. I appreciate everybody's focus on it. We really appreciate it. I'm ready to have a long night, 3 recognitions, and then we're not nearly as fun. But we do want to take the time to answer any questions that you may have. We really do appreciate your partnership and your time.
I will say thank you, don't have any questions, but we did see some of this beforehand. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
I have a question.
Well,
Okay.
Too late. I'm kidding.
For 6 years, I've been sitting and listening to both these presentations, and I don't think I've ever asked, and I know Dr. Gordon and her team probably know this well, but it'd be helpful for the rest of the board. What can we do as a board to help support BOCES in the context of supporting our students?
So I'll let Mike answer too, but I think that I would say a couple of things to that. I mean, really being wonderful advocates for your own district is a wonderful place to start, right? Because when districts are funded well and able to implement what they need, they have good resources available to be able to help us build our programming and really create those opportunities for students. So I think that would be the first thing. And to just be aware of, advocacy. Of course, supporting our budget is great. And I think really just understanding the power of collaboration and partnership and continuing to support that work that happens. Dr. Wood has really been one of my constant partners since I came back to BOCES. She's always there to support her colleagues and her peers. She serves on any committee that is necessary. And we're really able to do great things together and work to support their leadership teams in that way and really keep a focus on making sure that students have the opportunities that they need. So, something comes forward and says, well, it's just about one student. It's never just that one, right? And it's really about thinking more broadly about the context of our region and making sure that students have opportunities.
What she said.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Sorry for my delayed question.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm here with Mrs. Steinberg to present the first draft of our budget for the 2026-2027 school year. So this is an opportunity for everybody to hear the budget, ask questions, and we can make modifications before the adoption of it. So just to walk you through some of our district priorities, a lot of these things were presented at our budget workshop in the beginning of February, but we are looking to support the implementation of more outdoor learning spaces. We've talked a lot about things that we're putting in place for the Blue Ribbon Commission, the graduate profile, anyone from high school. We're looking to support year one of the Winter Circle program. They were here to present last board meeting, which was great. We also want to take a look at the opportunity to support our welding certificate program, which Dr. Rod is putting in place. And we have ongoing upgrades of district facilities. We're always looking to match our instructional priorities and student needs. And we also want to support LAMS for their culturally responsive sustaining education program, which Mrs. Smith and Mr. Brown talked about in February. We always consider when we put together the budget, many different factors. We look at the economic climate. We always have a school funding review. We look at all innovation program, our student needs. We need to match facilities and instruction for our program. And as always, we look at the financial stability of the district. So our budget status. So currently our board is scheduled to adopt the budget on April 9th. In our communications later today, that date might be changing because we do have a public hearing on the lighting permit for the field on April 9th. So we do have a conflict and maybe looking to move that board meeting. We do have the formal budget hearing in Expo on May 7th. That's actually going to be at Mill Road this year. So we'll have the budget Expo starting at 5:45 and then the hearing will be here. Voter registration will also be available here in the community cafeteria on that day, and then the vote will be on midnight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here to do that my first budget. So that's I will say that everyone's been so kind and patient with me. I think the asked a lot of questions that the administrators and support staff that really didn't ask for from getting, receiving, or answering really well. So you'll see on the slide here is our 26 27 budget. It's a something more. At the top of the slide are the expense code, and at the bottom are the revenue codes. We do have about 500 account codes that make up those expenditures. We won't go over all of those tonight because I said I'm limited on time. So you'll see here that our budget for next year is $67.3 million. That's a 3.66% increase over the current year, which also equates to about $2.4 million. We do have the same amount in our revenues budget. That's at the bottom of the slide. We are required to have a balanced budget. So that's why those two numbers match. I just want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the items that are up here. You'll notice that the salaries budget has an increase of about 1.87%. That's lower than it would have been in the prior years, but there are some things that are affecting that. First of all, we've learned that we're expected to get more in our UPK aid than we did in previous years. So we'll be able to totally fund the costs that we currently have for UPK through the grant rather than having some of the costs in the general fund. And then also we so in our budget, the savings from our retirees. It's my understanding that we have more retirees this year than we do in normal years. And so we actually removed the higher salaries from the budget for those retirees and entered what we would expect to pay for the teachers. Also up here is our BOCES budget. I did show a very slight increase. That's because we looked at the BOCES budget that we had. We noticed we had in our budget some items that we just weren't utilizing, so we reduced it a little bit. But the BOCES budget does include some increases, like the cost for the Winter Circle program that we're also excited about. And we also have our early college access program through BOCES, which is really good for our students too. Even though that's increasing a little bit, we do have some additional aid that will come back to us next year, and that's included down below in the state. You'll notice that the equipment is increasing about $85,000. That's primarily for two reasons. The car kit for Winter Circle is not included in the OC services, so we have a budget for that in the equipment. But we also did some reallocation of budget. We moved about $33,000 from our contractual code into equipment to accommodate some furniture and fixture upgrades at the high school library. Again, those are not new budget amounts. The 31,000, 33,000 is not new. It's just a reallocation. And then also you'll see that the debt service payments are increasing to about 32%. This is for new debt that we have in the books for two prior projects. We had a project voted in 2019, I believe it was the solar project, and another project voted in 2022, the district-wide project. We just issued the bond for that in June. So this budget reflects payments on that borrowing that will start next year. But we do have additional building aid that will help offset some of that debt service costs. And we also, I'll show you some of the tax cap, how much of our tax cap is going to fund the debt service too. And then finally, in the employee benefit line, we did a budget, Mr. Scarrett said, just under 10% composite rate for health insurance increases. However, we do have a health insurance liability for retirees' health insurance on our books. You may remember in December, Mr. Martin talked about that. It's about $1.4 million, and we're going to use about $460,000 of that liability to offset some of the costs for health insurance. Auditors don't like to see that on the books, so we really do need to have a plan to spend it down. This year, for 26, 27, we'll have the highest amount that we spend on it. And then every year after that, for 2 years, we'll use a little bit less of it until it gets totally left. And then at the bottom part of this slide, we show the revenues. I do have other slides about taxes. I'll talk about that then. But the 3.61% increase is the tax allowable tax levy. So we are within the constraints of the tax cap. Also, you'll see that state aid is increasing 3.61%. That's totally a coincidence that both revenue sources are increasing by that amount. The governor's proposal includes a 1% increase for us in foundation aid, but there are other items in that state aid amount other than foundation aid. We have some expense-driven aids, like our aids for transportation, the high-cost aid for special education, and also our local services aid. And like I said earlier, we are expecting to see an increase in that OC services aid primarily for two reasons: the early college access program, and also because the salary cap for most of these services has increased this year from 30,000 to 40,000, and we'll receive that additional aid next year. And then finally, the fund balance appropriation is nearly the same as last year. That's really the number that we use to fill in the budget cap because our revenues do come to match our expenses. This one here shows the component budget. New York State requires that school districts show the budget of these three components and then capital and program. The administrative portion of the budget covers the district-wide management and oversight, it's central administration, the school administration, business operations, legal services, insurance, and even any costs that we might have for education. The program component represents the core instructional mission of the district. It includes classroom instruction, special education, student support services, athletics, co-curriculars, and also transportation services. And the capital component includes the cost of maintaining the facilities for our custodial staff and also for bus purchases and any debt service on the capital. We have two slides regarding the tax cap. This slide just shows the summary of the major factors that affected the tax cap. As I stated earlier, our tax cap increased this to 6.1%. You'll see here that the first factor is the consumer price index. That's really contributes to the allowable levy growth factor, which is the same for every school district in New York State. It's tied to the consumer price index and represents inflation. New York State sets this factor each year. It's kept at 2%, and it really controls how much a district has to spend
on the operating costs from 1 year to the next. I think in 2025, the inflation was actually increased by 2.7%, and we are limited to that 2%. And then the tax-based growth factor, that's different for every school district, but it's also set by New York State. It reflects physical growth in the district's taxable property. So it will represent new construction or significant property improvements. It would allow the district to slightly increase the tax levy to account for growth in the tax base. It's also used towards our operating costs. And then finally, we have the tax cap increase for capital. Capital work is an exclusion to the tax cap. The new gap that we're bringing on provides an increase of 6.3% in the overall tax cap for the district. And this slide here shows the calculations. Someone really wants to go through the whole thing. I won't read it line by line. But you'll notice we start with the base tax levy at the top. We apply those factors that we just talked about. And it brings us to the overall increase of 3.61% or 1.49 million. So everything that we just talked about is included here. One additional thing are the pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes. We do have one pilot for the town of Red Hook for a senior housing project. I believe we've had that pilot for many years. So the difference between what we receive 1 year and expect to review the next year does have a slight difference.
Great.
I see that.
So we do have some,
What was the, tax cap last year with the, I know there's things that allow us to go above the 2%. What was it last year? We were, oh,
I don't know exactly what it was the next year.
it seemed like it was about 3.7%.
It's very similar.
Very similar.
Tax-based growth that higher last year, but our capital was lower.
Is that it?
so also on the board agenda tonight are a few other items on the ballot that we'd like approval to put with propositions. The first one is our vehicle proposition. If you remember, Mr. Percio and I discussed this in February in our transportation presentation. We are looking for 3 hybrid SUVs. The SUVs that we have now are end of life, and we do use these to go longer distances. We're looking for 2 16-passenger buses, which are our smaller pickup vans, and we also are looking for a maintenance truck. So out of that, ask, it's just over $500,000. Our transportation aid over 5 years is at 46.6%, so our net cost would be just over $330,000.
The buses would be these buses?
No bus, for the passenger buses. Yeah. for
The 2 passenger buses.
So the 2 passenger buses will be gasoline
Yes.
and then the SUVs will be gas. Hybrid.
Got it. Okay.
So we've talked a lot about the capital project this year. As we know, we're looking to support a bus garage renovation. So this is a picture of our current bus garage at Linden Avenue Middle School. It was built in 3 phases over the last 75 years. So the middle section is the original. We added on what we call the bus storage or pole barn on the right. And then the end section here where our wash bay, they can say on the left, that was their newest addition in 2000. Just to remind the public and the board, some of the additions inside the bus garage, this is the dispatch and administrative offices, as you can see. As we talked about, it's very crowded in there, lots of private space. It's difficult for Mr. Person to have private conversations. The often has to go to a bus if we need to have a private conversation. So we need to upgrade their office space. This is a picture outside of the administrative offices. You can see the back where the bus is and that air conditioner is coming out. That's actually the back of Mr. Person's office, which is made with the redesign some type of cardboard and things. This is a view of the employee bathroom. You can see that where the top is cut out, the exposed pipes. We also have a break room, which is not sufficient for the number of staff that we have there. So this is our mechanical area. On the right, you'll see where the restroom is. And as we talked about when we made this presentation earlier in the fall, one of the things that happens is that anyone that needs to use the restroom needs to walk through the maintenance area So there's often different repairs going on for buses and things such as tools and things that are not in ideal condition for people to use the restroom. You'll also notice that too, the tight space and lack of storage area that we have, so that we end up having to keep some of our tools and equipment out in that maintenance area. These are our maintenance bays for both large and small vehicles. You can see some of the cramped conditions. The other issue is that the floors are not completely level, so we're looking to redo all of the space as well. Our storage bays, so this is otherwise known as our pole barn. As we discussed, the buses just fit. You can see the nose on the right-hand side of the picture. The mirror was the light was all the way up to the end of the wall, and it actually requires the driver to come out one door. They are not able to circulate the entire bus. It just fits, and we're able to close the door. So in the new renovation, what we're looking to do is extend out the front 6 feet so that we extend the area and have room so the driver can actually walk all the way around the bus, and also so that we can put some new mechanical board on front of those storage bays. This is our wash bay station. So currently this is a drive-in pull-out station. So we're looking to upgrade the station so that it can pull through. So the buses go through, they get washed, and then they can just circle around. We're also looking at the capital project proposition to upgrade the infrastructure for the welding program. So Dr. Roddy's talked a lot about the certificate welding program. There's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for our students in offering this program. But in order to run the program, we would like to put this is an example of what the welding stations would look like as individual stations. To support this, we need to do some infrastructure in our electric and our ventilation. So that is included in that for the capital project proposition. So in total, the cost between the bus garage and the infrastructure work at the high school, it's just over 15.8 million. We are making a recommendation to use 1 million of our capital reserve. So if you remember, a few years ago, we started the capital reserve fund. We currently have $1.7 million in there. We're looking to use the 1 million as a contribution to help lower the tax burden. As I mentioned before, New York State does not fully fund in aid the bus garage renovation or addition. So they will not aid any area that we consider bus storage. So that pole barn that we talked about where we store the buses overnight, that part is not aided. So we won't know the exact amount until once this project passes and we submit the plans to SED, and then they will come back and tell us how much is aided. But because of that, we think that this is one of the purposes of our capital reserve was to help lower the tax burden for our taxpayers. So by applying that $1 million, we would end up with our total borrowing amount of just over 14.8 million. So on an average household of $400,000, it would be about $28 a year over 21 years. It starts off a little higher and then it gets lower as debt service drops off along the way. And we also have a rental proposition for the rental library and Assembly Library on there. And this year we have 2 vacant vacancies. Happy to answer any questions.
I do want to highlight too that the governor has the ability to approve coming up, right, building aid for bus storage.
Yeah, both the Assembly and the Senate are recommending that the governor approve to help support infrastructure for buses, that they approve all building aid on anything that has to do with supporting the bus fleet. So if that were to come through, that would be great for us because then essentially 100% of our project would be eligible for aid.
Is there a reason why we would not get stated on a maintenance vehicle?
Because it's outside, that's what I thought.
And so when you said that you would move it out 6 feet, when you said forward, is that the back side of
So the front things, if you're looking at the front of the bus garage where we currently have manual doors that cover. So we would be looking to bump out the front 6 feet and then put a new envelope down, and that allows the bus to pull in, and it allows room for the driver to circulate and also to put in new mechanical doors.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do we have updated drawings on what the bus drive will look like?
No, so we have preliminary drawings on the renovation and where the addition will be, but we don't get into detailed drawings unless the proposition passes, and then we'll have renderings and more detailed things that we can put up.
footprint's not wildly different than what we have.
Yeah, I know, I'm just looking at, for the public to see, like, it's nice to see what you're voting for, but what it will, even if it, I know, it won't be exact when they can't get into that, but just so they have an idea of what they're voting on.
Yeah, our plan is to, make a video of what it currently looks like, and speak to Anthony. The Curzio will be the highlighted video, but go through and discuss that and then look at some renderings of what it possibly could look like. I don't know if it'll end up being like a prefabricated building. So those questions will all come into play as we evolve.
Yeah, and I think it would be important if we do a video is it's a bus garage. So it's not about how pretty it looks. I still looks pretty, but it's really about the mechanics and the functionality, and the safety, the charging capabilities, the lift, the mechanics of what we can do, the safety, enhancements that will protect our workers. So I think those will be the things that in a video, I think, will be more important than like, if we just show a pretty bus garage. What do we need? Get my point?
Kind of aesthetically pleasing.
I mean, you want it to look aesthetically pleasing because it does, it's an extra building, but I think that for something like this, it's functionality.
Yeah, and we're looking at lists that we're borrowing at this point.
Yeah,
It's really not functional at this point.
It's a great point, and like that, I actually interviewed Anthony earlier this week, so over all of those sectors, and primarily it's just, we look at the conditions of the bus garage for our staff, but also for safety, and we want to run conduit in the pole barn and cover with concrete, so that in the future, we can build on infrastructure for charging that were to come up. We have the 6 chargers that currently are in there now. So there's a lot of factors, it's not just one thing, but I think that being functional is the biggest point that we want to make, especially with the lift. The lift is broken, we spend money every month to rent one. So having our own, that's functional, for our maintenance sites is really important.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we did not put EV buses on this proposition mainly because the governor, and actually the proposal right now to go to the governor is only $100 million. And I think our district alone could use $100 million. So we're not seeing, the ability to offset the cost for those two. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about our current EV buses. So I don't know if Anthony, if you want to touch on that. I know you have some representatives with you as well.
Thank you. So I have Jeremy Johnson and Chuck O'Neill. They're here from New York Bus Sales, and they're willing to answer any questions that the board may have. So we received 4 new EV buses. 2 of them were delivered. I used one for a day and a half, and there were some defects in the bus. They were willing to take them back to the dealer and repair those defects. When the bus went back, it ended up having a check engine light. So with the EV buses, there's 2 companies. Bluebird has one side of it, and Cummins, the diesel manufacturer, has the second side of it, and they do the EV batteries, they do the EV motor, they have a lot of components inside that bus. And so the buses went back for repairs to New York bus sales, and then they had to go to Cummins. So Cummins, so bottom line, any sort of a mechanic is tough to get to them. They're not knocking on the door saying, "Oh, we want to be mechanics." Now you add EV to it, and there's less mechanics. So Cummins in Albany only has 1 mechanic to work on the buses. So all 4 of our buses went there. And when they work on an EV bus, they have to derate all the batteries. There's a whole process to it. So you can't bring one bus in, diagnose it, and say, "Oh, we'll pull that one out and get the next one in." You have to bring that bus in, diagnose it, and then do the repair however long that takes. So they end up getting a backlog. We were fortunate enough to have New York Bus Sales work with Cummins, and they're bringing more resources
to help Cummings. They're gonna bring another mechanic down from Syracuse. They brought a mechanic, from the Bronx up to Albany. And they're in the process of getting our buses back on the road and getting them delivered to us. I don't know if you want, but I have a list of buses that we worked on here at Red Hook over the winter. I have, two propane buses, and they were out of service for about 4 weeks because they needed fuel pumps. When you do a fuel pump on a propane bus, you can't bring it inside because of the vapors and the fumes. So you have to evacuate the propane outside, and it has to be a dry day, because if there's any moisture in the air, once you open up that propane tank, all the moisture gets absorbed in that tank. So you need specific days that you can work on those propanes. And I would say both of those propane buses were out of service for about 4 weeks with the fuel pump. I had 2 gasoline buses, actually 3 gasoline buses. I had bus 138, bus 140, and bus 143 that were out of service as well over the winter. And then our 1 diesel bus, that one was out of service for about 2 weeks. That needed an EGR valve, which is a simple fix, but to get the part in, it took quite a bit of time. And then as far as even our SUVs, I had 2 of them that were out of service for about a week each, and they needed water pumps over the winter. So it was a rough winter, and it's not just the EV buses. We hear a lot about the EVs, a lot of criticism, but there's also other buses as well. And I want to make sure everybody is aware of that as well.
So I think that's an important distinction too, if the board has additional questions. I think there's also some of the reality that this is, evolving technology. And you probably look back when they first started driving cars and there was conversations about that. So anytime that you enter an arena where there is new technology or new energy sources, it's going to be part of it. But I think that it's important to note that that's not the only thing, but I would also like to commend that we have a partnership and we have the dedication of these groups that are seeking to make sure that Red Hook is successful with onboarding these EV buses, and they're very attentive to our needs, and they've been down here meeting, and we're going to be going out and visiting with them in Albany as well, just to talk about how do we continue that partnership moving forward. So I think it's just important to know that the board has additional questions. I think it's just important that we are able to hear directly the truth about the situations that are going on in the bus garage.
And I was just gonna say, like, I appreciate the transparency about the EV bus obstacles. I think because we're facing this mandate, I think it's important to still advocate for what these challenges are around this mandate. But there are a lot of questions and concerns in our community, so I think just really being clear about what those obstacles are would be really helpful. And just being really transparent about, getting these buses, the issues that we're dealing with these buses.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have honest conversations. We're gonna have to talk more in depth about this next year because the mandate remains in place in the state. And as I mentioned last month, we've had some positive experiences with the 2 buses that we put on the road, but there are challenges, and one of them is very cost prohibitive, without any kind of grant or incentive money to pay for them. In addition to Dr. Gordon's point, it's new technology. They don't have the infrastructure or the techs to work on the technology. That becomes a challenge as well. So it's a balance in trying to see how we move forward with the mandate in place. The other thing is that I don't know that everybody's aware of, starting in 2027, we can no longer purchase fuel buses, but bus companies are not allowed to sell them to school districts either. So if we can't purchase a fuel bus, we don't purchase an EV bus, we're also faced with the situation of not being able to purchase a bus, which creates another challenge.
So all of those things that we really need to consider. But I do want to thank Jeremy and Chuck and how responsive these guys have been and coming to meetings. They always pick up the phone. So I know that they're hearing it. They have challenges themselves too, but they've been wonderful to work with. And we're grateful.
And there's no modifications in the budget, the governor's budget for EV buses. She did not modify the timeline. There's no modifications. So this is continuing exactly the way that it is. Can you also highlight the costs? I think there's a misconception about costs. I know we got grants for all these buses. There's misconceptions about how much we paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to remind the board, we qualified for NYSERDA grant, which allowed us 6 buses. We got $220,500 for each of those buses. The first 2 we've already paid for. They each cost us $13,000. We paid just over $26,000 for the 2 buses. The 4 buses that the voters approved last year, we've been invoiced for 63, after aid and our incentive, it cost $63,000 a bus. We have not paid a penny for any of those 4 buses. We haven't put out any money at all for towing, repair. We haven't paid for the buses. So the only thing we paid for the first year. But just to remind the board too, they cost about $500,000 a bus. So it's a large expense to put in place, especially now that we've capped out. We maxed out around 14% allowable amount of our fleet to be able to have grant money and access that too. So that's also a change. And when Anthony and I met with NYSERDA, we asked them if more money comes through from the state districts like us, where we've maxed out our ability to access that grant, will they change the guidelines? And we don't have an answer for that. So.
I do have just one more follow-up question about that. So how does this work with our bus replacement plan? Like if we're only looking to purchase in the future or can purchase EV buses, and we have a situation like where we have multiple buses that are non-operational, do we foresee that being a problem?
I think that's absolutely going to be part of the conversation. The other thing that happens is whenever we don't purchase a vehicle, we lose that aid, right? And we use that as a revenue source. So there's challenges across the board. Right now, Anthony's been very proactive. We have a full fleet. We've been able to run our buses every day. Our kids are getting picked up and dropped off. We've been able to do sports runs, so we're fine right now. But I don't know if that's sustainable in the future, and that definitely has to be part of our.
Should they provide us with buses to use in this situation? Our buses are in the shop.
Yes, absolutely. Jeremy, he drove those loaner buses up here himself personally because that's just the type of people they are. They know we're stressed. Right now, we're not, but when these sports trips, we start doing 4 sports trips today. We're going to be stressed for buses. So Jeremy's supplying buses for us at no charge.
Do you think that the additional, is there extra wear and tear we're gonna be seeing over the next 3 years while these fields get renovated? Do you account for a certain, amount of mileage per EV bus or bus? Does that contribute to some of the overusage? I'm just trying to understand.
For sports situations, it's just, it's part of the business. It is all accounted for. Basically, what we do is the year. We try to have a replacement plan of 10 years. Sometimes we go 12 years with a vehicle. We have great mechanics. They keep up with the maintenance and they keep the buses going. And if DOT comes in and inspects the bus twice a year, every 6 months, our buses get inspected by DOT. And if they see something that's getting old, they'll say, this is the last inspection. You got to get ready to, put this one out. The other thing I forgot to mention is EV 145. That bus, it didn't miss a beat all winter. It has 9,400 miles on it. And that one was the most recent one to get sent out. We're still waiting diagnostic for it because we have these other 4 buses ahead of it. But it's not a bad run for the first year to get 9,400 miles. I'm definitely impressed with it. The kids were happy with it. It ran every day in that cold weather. We had -2, -8 degree mornings, and that bus was out. And right now, we have EV 146 that's on the road, and that one has about 5,000 miles on it.
Do we have a current, bus replacement plan?
Yes.
Because this is last year that we'd be able to purchase, I know we're not purchasing any, gas buses this year, but this would be the last year that we could. I know there's concern about the cost of the electric buses moving forward, so I'm just wondering how that plays into our plan for the next 5 years.
That's exactly the point, right? We have to talk about that. It's a challenge for sure. I mean, we're fine right now, and the way that we scheduled it and buying 4 buses last year allowed us to buy the hybrid vehicles this year, so we got that relief from buying a big bus. But it's absolutely something that needs to be part of the conversation moving forward and how we're going to navigate that.
Yeah, and even when the mandate comes, there's still gonna be gas buses probably for a good, how many years? Because you're not just gonna like say, oh, we're not driving these anymore. It's still gonna be, okay, we're gonna slowly transition, but we're still gonna have the gas, we're gonna still have the propane. I mean, it's gonna take, I couldn't even guess, 20 years for a full transition, if you think about it, because you're not just gonna stop using your gas and propane buses that you currently have. So I don't even know, how many years would be the entire fleet be?
So,
You guys have an idea about.
2035, the original, right?
Yeah.
That's that,
That's how it's gonna happen, I don't.
but
yeah.
that's still the date as of now.
Correct, so I think that we're moving in that, but for an entire fleet,
so
Yeah.
our newest gasoline bus is 2024, so in 12 years, that bus has 12 years of life too. So,
right, we wouldn't stop using that. Do you guys have anything you want to add?
No, Jeremy Johnson,
If you just come over to the.
Jeremy Johnson, New York Bus Sales, just here to show the support for the district. I mean, again, we're all going through this together. As you mentioned, technology evolves. We've had next to us, which is here to support whatever direction that it takes. So just thank you.
We appreciate that.
Anyone, any other questions?
I know we were talking about the budget, but I think it's important to address some of the concerns that we're hearing.
Going back to the budget, I think at some point we were talking about a video to highlight the bus garage. Would it be also possible to include the other elements of the proposition?
The welding.
Yeah, welding and vehicle, just to put it all in one place?
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
When is budget should be the next meeting?
The propositions that incorporate in the legal language have to be approved tonight in order to get on the ballot in the timeline states that, but the budget can be adopted at the next board meeting. That is to be adopted by April 24th.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to our first recognition of visitors. If anyone would like to speak. Oh. No, that's not, that's on down. What's the proposition?
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's.
It's the far, it's smaller. So that brings us to our first recognition of visitors. If anyone would like to speak, we ask that you come to the podium, you state your name, speak into the microphone. And we ask that you have topics that are either on our budget or that pertain to the district. Is there anyone? All right, you come right along to budget discussion. Now we're cooking. Does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss as far as the 2026 set of budget? No.
The language is just the language needs to be acted in the same for the proposition. So if you look at the legal notice, number 3, the proposition has, the specific language and the admin garage. I think that's the project, and you can get number 4, the legal notice does not have that under proposition number 2.
So, can I get a motion, to approve the legal notice, the legal proposition?
Motion.
Any discussion? Equal to that, yeah. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, and then, we need a motion and a second to approve, the legal notice proposition, the vegetable, the infrastructure for the welding program. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. And then, I need a motion and second to approve the legal notice for the May 2026 vote, in the Tivoli Electric Library. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I think, Jen just wants to note that proposition two.
Yeah. So
And, we got planning on date that and the legal notice of the number two.
Okay.
Which will add the word.
So let's, just to be on the safe side, let's vote to add that to London Avenue and the Redwood High School. Yes, okay. Yeah. Okay, so can I get a motion and a second on that? All those in favor? And then go back to, okay, and then. Back to me.
That's Heather. You already got a motion.
All right.
I hope so.
Okay, motion and second, Carol's next.
So I would also like to commend the, play. It was absolutely wonderful and commend the actual theater programs and the kind of like for what it looks like now. It was involved with the dancing, choreography, singing. I think it was enjoyed by all, and I believe they said they sold over 1,000 tickets. So, I mean, I think that was why we built this. And also just to note, the middle school has, Midsummer Night's Dream, the Shakespeare play, Friday and Saturday, if people are interested in that, we have to support our upcoming actors and actresses, moving forward. I just want to highlight a few things from our community conversation. There, we received the notes from there. And I just wanted to thank the community for coming, thank the board and our district leadership and our administrators for participating. And just a few highlights, when they went through and discussed skills, programming, experiences for the future, there's a lot of things that they spoke about that we were doing well. That we're providing some hands-on real world learning, focusing on the arts, like I just said. We have, our social emotional learning programs. We provide a strong academic foundation. There was a lot of discussion about a play-based, model, and nurturing that with the environments that we've been created. There was talk about what tech integration and talking about digital tools. And things that they talked about that we could do better in this area was focusing a little bit more on how we see ourselves in the future using technology, how we see STEM expansion, how we incorporate AI, artificial intelligence into that. Really also focusing on giving our students more career and real world pathways and deepening the critical thinking and problem solving that our students encounter in our classrooms. Also focusing more on practical life skills, and we know that financial literacy is becoming mandated, but we've also been doing that. But also supporting students become more independent. We added the word resilience recently to our mission statement, so I think that goes nicely with that. They also talked about incorporating more with student voice and leadership roles, so letting our students have those abilities to take those leadership roles really, I think, helps them in the future. And as far as our facilities, how they can evolve and support the skills in our programs in the future, what we were doing well was the outdoor and garden programs were spoken about, and how looking at sustainability programs. They also said we were doing well with spaces that support collaboration. As many of you know, we've been updating our furniture, our spaces, so just being acknowledged in that area. Also acknowledging our wellness and movement, just our gym spaces have changed. Space for all of our outdoor recess. We've included playgrounds over the years. walking past, things of that nature. We've also been involving students in the design of the school, asking students what they would like their school to look like and incorporating that. What we can do better is they want more outside stuff, which is great, which we're definitely talking about that. Improvement, again, learning environments outside. Enhanced food and kitchen opportunities. Somebody wanted a waffle and burrito bar. I'm all for that. So kitchen space for student learning, some more authentic ways to help our students in that area. Looking what we could do a little bit better into is more wellness, focusing more on gym access outside of maybe school hours and looking at technology and innovation. How does virtual reality technology come into play? And that sometimes this comes up with technology, once you invest, does that now become obsolete? So really keeping that in mind. Looking at inclusivity and accessibility, more inclusive programming, looking at facilities and logistic improvements, lockers, I know the lockers, and reduce backpack dependency. Maybe looking at our late bus transportation, community connection, use of our PAC center more, maybe some collaboration with other districts came up. And I believe the final question that was asked is what should community engagement and partnerships with families and community members look like in the future? And the things that we were doing well was the parent square. I know that for years people were talking about we had many different ways of communication. So parent square came up. More newsletters, the fact that they're at community conversations, the community partnership team. There was talk of community and school connections activities that were going well. Like partnerships with BARD for the Girls in Math program, our family fun night, our PTA meetings. Also something we're doing well is our student-centered experiences. Our students are able to go out and to the farms, the hospitals, and have local connection, but also hands-on experiences. We also building relationships with our community that was seen as a positive and involving parents. And what we could do better was expand it even more, having maybe more open houses or things where parents can come into the school, provide more volunteer opportunities, and improve two-way communication. So it's not only like provided one way. Maybe some surveys to get a broader audience, and to strengthen our partnership and our programming. PTSA at the secondary level, look to strengthen that, expand some of our BARD partnerships, and increase access to school resources, add an electronic sign that came up. Programming and events, more multicultural and international events may be open to the community. Equity, inclusion, enhancements, improved language access, more translations, ensure advisory groups have diverse voices and manage participation equitably. And technology and community improvements, improve team communication tools for sports teams, and use teams and similar tools that all students can access. So, yeah, I think we looked over as an administrative team, and there's some of the thoughtful things that we are going to be looking at like immediately was the instructional technology plan, with the fact that technology is evolving so quickly and the impact of artificial intelligence, just to be thoughtful about what that would look like in the future, so that we have a plan, and how do we teach students to use it responsibly? How does that incorporate into our teaching and our practices, and something new comes out every day. So like you might comment about when you put something in place, does that become obsolete, and does the next thing come, and how do we have our students do that? And looking really at the digital citizenship, which we've been doing for a while, but how does that look when you incorporate? And also too, we had our first Mill Road Community Partnership Tour. And I can go through some of the strengths there too. It was wonderful. We heard from our facilities director, our technology director, and then Our principal and assistant principal in Mill Road toured the school and had a really good opportunity to see classrooms, go outside, have just a better understanding of how the school is run. So some of the strengths were strong relationships that are built at the elementary level, a very dedicated staff. It's very student focused at the elementary school, with an emphasis on the whole child. There's good family partnerships with communication. There's supportive services. There's a positive school culture. And some areas for growth for Mill Road too was improved transitions and procedures. I don't know how you do it, but arrival and dismissal. That's always very difficult, but maybe looking at that strength, and then also continue to improve our communication, continue to enhance our academic support and our instructional practices, meet all diverse learners, and continue to expand and look at the social emotional behavior supports that we have for our students, and increase professional learning, which we did in the last superintendent's conference day here, is that have that vertical collaboration across the grade levels, which I think also having Mill Road be a pre-K 5 also comes into play. Strengthen our family engagement and clarify roles and responsibilities. I guess like who do I call if I have this, needs, and so kind of defining those areas. So we look forward to having that same group come back to tour, I believe, the high school next. We can go in order, the high school's next, and then we will go to Vans. So I'll just provide updates throughout that, just some areas that we'll look at, and then we just discussed too, that synthesizing those areas and providing what our next steps are and revisiting those, so that we talked about people making connections with, this is our mission, our vision, this is our profile of a graduate, and these are the reasons why we're doing these things. And when we get that community input, what we're putting in place and why we're putting it in place, and maybe we don't put it in place, why we didn't put it in place, I think it's really the key to finish that loop off. Does anybody have any questions about that?
How many people are on the community partnership meeting?
I think it was about 15. I'm not sure if they all showed up that day, but it was about 15 people.
15 people, so, and is it gonna be those same people that was at the hall?
That's what we did last year too.
So we're sticking with that.
Yeah.
Unless someone couldn't make it, we would have a sub list and we can have people who can come in. I'd be a little bit to try that.
And how is the turnout, the response for the survey? this year?
It's good.
How many people do you?
I don't know the survey.
There was a survey sent out, right?
Oh, so
To create the team. From
how many people apply to be on? Yeah, it's I still see that in the survey. So that's good. I'll get you a number.
Okay.
I think that's it. I did want to highlight that I think we had a chance that the Senate and the Assembly one house budget proposals that are waiting for the governor, and I think we went through some of them with the pre-K, which is great to hear from Linda. That was huge, because we know that when we started that, the district was taking on a lot of that. So that advocacy for that funding was heard, which was wonderful. And we're going to keep our eye on the school bus storage aid, because that will really affect us. But just to go back, that there is not enough money for the electric school infrastructure for across the state. Oh, and they're going to be looking at the Artificial Intelligence Literacy Act, which I think is going to be interesting. And they're looking at some grant programs, so I think we'll keep our eye on that to see some grants that will be intended to support digital equity and AI literacy in the education system. That's coming up as well. Thank you, Dr. Wood. So there's been many things going on. So last Friday was our superintendent's conference day, and I know the schedule is shared with the Board of Ed. There was a lot of teacher choice in that, professional development day. We always do an exit survey for our, time that teachers have, and they have the choice to, and most teachers do it. So let me just go through for the Mill Road Elementary faculty. The exit survey, had 65 responses, and out of 5, it's a 4.85 score. And a lot of people have a lot of positive feedback that we will utilize during our next professional development committee meeting to move us forward for our next, superintendent's conference day. At the Linden Avenue Middle School, 33 responses, and that overall, day score of 5 was 4.48. Again, there's many components to our exit survey, so we get a lot of written feedback about next steps, how will they use the professional development, what else do they need, what were the takeaways, what can they apply next day, next week. So that was very good. And at the high school, another, very productive day. They really did a lot of presentations on future job trends and current innovations. They did some performance-based learning assessments and utilized Notebook LM. And they spent the afternoon in departments working on, developing alternative assessments for those areas that did not, have a region. So that was very good. Overall, it was 55 responses, and that, rating was 4.0. So that, very productive. As I said, the data will be used in our next, committee meeting and also shared with administrators, steps. It also highlights in the board reports that the building principals have done. I'll start with the high school this time. Teachers and administrators have been doing their state work with a graduate and they're inspired. And as they use their time to work on conference day to build a vision for the performance-based learning assessments. Student services needs and high motion, getting ready for the end of the year, but also planning for next year. So they pushed into English classes to introduce new course selections and new course offerings. They've also have been very busy meeting with students to determine the schedules for next year. And over the last 4 weeks, they have met with over 400 students, and they're about 95% finished with that. Also, college planning night with school counselors will be on March 24th. And BLT is currently reviewing morning arrival protocols to maximize efficiency and safety. So that's what's going on at the high school. I always appreciate the student board members reporting out because you really get a very good snapshot of what the students are experiencing. So I get to hear what the teachers are experiencing, but it's always fun to hear what you have to share. So with Linden Avenue Middle School, the Latin Culture Fair was on March 5th. That was hosted by the International Club and led by their advisor, Liz Lamy. Always a wonderful event for students, staff, families, and community partners. And it really is a true celebration of Latin culture. We had an 8th grade student qualified in the New York State wrestling competition, and the whole building gave him an amazing send-off with a lot of spirit, a lot of good luck. So that was fun. And then 3 of Lamb's students performed at the New York State Band Directors Association Symposium. That is really a high honor. So it was really great to have those 3 students go and attend. Still working on the master schedule of Lamb's. They're looking to make a structural change to an 8-period day, 50 minutes. And they're working as a team to do that. They're still working through some challenges with band and chorus, but they have many suitable solutions that they're still working for. It's again starting to be New York State testing time. So in April 8th through the 9th will be ELA. April 14th through 15th will be math. And science for 8th grade only will be May 7th. That's happening at Lamb's and Mill Road. There's a lot going on. The Young Scholars Program wrapped up, and students had the opportunity to showcase creativity, curiosity, critical thinking, as they developed many projects over the last 2 months. Mill Road's also collected SAP and for hands-on science experience that really brings learning to life as only nature can. Student Council is working on exploring the possibility of organizing a school talent show. And they are also thinking about developing a student news broadcast, which would be a wonderful way to communicate out to their other friends about what's happening at Student Council. Crossroads wrapped up its winter session. It served 61 students, and that's an enrichment program after school. They did beginning and intermediate chess, winter exploration, snowshoeing, crafting, and Lego engineering. BLT is working on thinking about ideas for the Merrill update for outside the pre-K through second grade May entrance. So, there. In athletics, as the winter has ended, there's sports season, and today there's 177 student athletes signed up for spring sports, and modified will begin their practice after spring break. Under PPS, a lot of professional development going on for PPS. They're currently working on planning for next year, transition meetings, projection meetings. They are fine tuning the professional development for All Points, which is working with our flex classroom to design more curriculum and assessment tools. Wilson Just Words with a full day training. We want the tier 2 coding intervention program. An effective school solution did provide training to our aides and our bus drivers focused on trauma-informed approaches for supporting students. Last but not least is technology. A big area that's happening in technology is looking for the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center will no longer support our school data management system for our students. So Brenton is working to see if which other BOCES will support that, and he intends to he's done a lot of work looking for the right place for us, and there will support the data, and we'll go with that. We're working in contract with that. So that's the summary of the office curriculum. What's going on?
So great. And facilities, so everybody can see the lockdown button here. It's the yellow box above the light switch. It currently says they're not in use. They're happy to report that they're all installed across each of the 3 buildings. That was part of our capital proposition from last year. So we are using spring break to commission all of them, which means we're testing every single one of them in the building so the students aren't here. So some people in the village maybe there's some of those alarms going off throughout the day, but it's purposeful because we want to make sure that they're all work and integrated into our system. We are working hard to change over the lights at Lambs to LED lights. So Mr. Royce and his staff have been working diligently to do that. If you'll remember here at Mill Road in the high school, all the lights will be changed to LED as part of our capital project proposition, and Lambs for doing on our own. We did offer an AED training at our conference day. I'm happy to report that we had 16 more staff members training, which is great and really helpful to have the number of staff that we do in case of medical emergency. So I think we're up to 47 staff in the district that are trained in CPR and AED. We have great news from food service, the Farm to School Showcase, which will be here on May 7th. We've had incredible feedback from farms who were expecting many farms to come, including, if you'll remember, the indoor organic gardens. If we tasted the broccoli powder, if you guys remember the broccoli powder, they're coming and they're bringing a surprise guest chef. Yes, we're very excited for that. So I hope everybody stops by and gets a sample and meets our surprise guest chef. That would be great. We did have, I mentioned, the CIA volunteer program with the Culinary Institute of America. We did launch that on March 2nd, had a lot of success. We are looking at repeating that in April. So we're going to try to do it once a month We had great feedback. We had over 40 students volunteer from culinary, so which was awesome. They come into our kitchens, work with our staff, so it's a mutually beneficial relationship. We do have to spread them out because we had so many, which is overwhelmingly great. So we're going to continue that. I do want to point out, one of the things that the state and the assembly both agreed on is allowing breakfast in schools to be considered part of the 30% initiative. But one of the things that the food service department in the state that oversees all of the schools is asking for support from boards and from administrators to ask the legislation to also increase the reimbursement amount. Because if they include the breakfast and with the lunch and don't increase the reimbursement amount, we can actually lose money and hurt the program. So they have to change the whole program for it to be beneficial to schools. So Sam Pride sent me a draft letter that I could share with the board if you'd like to see it. I think it would be something that we should put out supporting. Yeah, it's great. We gave the update on transportation tonight from Mr. Furtier, so that was great. And one thing I wanted to mention in technology that we had planned as a summer project that we went ahead and did it was the firewall replacement. So in the district, we put in a firewall to help decrease the opportunity for cyber attacks. Oh, okay. One last thing I just would like to discuss with the board and bring to your attention is, a suggestion to make some changes for our Board of Education dates. So right now, we have a meeting scheduled on April 9th. As I mentioned in my presentation, we are scheduled to go before the village planning board for a public hearing that night, which I know that, I need to attend, and board members may want to attend as well. So, in our original calendar, we had a BOCES meeting on April 21st. That actually needs to be moved to the 28th. That was a clerical error. The BOCES vote is on the 28th, but what we are proposing is that we hold a regularly scheduled board meeting on April 21st. If it works for the board, then 5 o'clock start date for a public meeting, because we do need to adopt the budget prior to April 24th. So if that works for the board.
And then we're going executive session.
And just to make mention, May 7th, the budget expo, I did say in my presentation that that has been moved to Mill Road. So our communications about that have gone out, and that also means the public hearing on the budget will be here at 7 o'clock in this cafeteria on May 7th. May 19th is our budget vote, and then we are looking to cancel the May 21st meeting, because what we've done historically is after the vote, I read out the results, and then the board, if we have a form there, can ratify the results.
That's May 19th, okay.
May 19th, yeah. So at 9 o'clock when we close the polls, we'll count the votes. I'll read out the results, and then if it works to have a forum, we can ratify the results as we've done the last several years. Okay, and then that leaves us with our regularly scheduled meeting in June on June 12th, which will also include our last committee meetings for this year.
And I know that, a board member asked if we can try to look at creating the dates for next year. Sooner than later.
We're waiting. We need that BOCES vote date, so we don't have the same problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Great, that brings us to committee, we've got policy. Anything to report out? Wanted, and the first read for health day for school bus drivers and first read for student evaluation and placement. That's provided, and for that one, we just had like a very minor sort of semantics edit, but other than that, we put it as is. And that one has also been looked over by the
For the principals.
This is a logistical question. In policies, we put names of staff members who will be.
We said that she would take it.
Okay, great.
And that brings us to advocacy or community engagement. So we did have our first tour and we also talked about community conversations. So I know that Dr. Warden went over that, so I can kind of say ditto to both of those. Is that not? No. I like that. And then we also went over our board advice, some of the key points that we highlighted tonight, but that will also go out. And, this, we didn't discuss this, but it was just brought up, but I do like, what Dr. Hayes was saying about advocacy. I get them now. Yes, for the lunch, so that could be something maybe we could put on the next agenda to take a look at. And that brings us to facilities.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Hayes covered a lot in terms of the capital project, we spent a good amount of time on that. And then Lou gave us a timeline on the field, so just to bring everybody up to speed. We are going to bid shortly, I mean, pretty aggressively, I think in the next couple of weeks, to try to get that by April 21st, so we can approve it at the end of April. He already has identified multiple, GC, there's a lot of, dirt digging, as he kept referring to, just to remind everyone, the two fields that we're going to be focusing on, and I have to use the term football field because that's really what's going to be now, and then the secondary field when you drive into the high school, which is currently the soccer and lacrosse fields, men and women. Well, men and women's soccer, women's lacrosse. There's never an ideal time you have to rip the Band-Aid off. This is a very lengthy process, and I think while elements like timing, seeding, watering, dryness, summer, seasons all come into play. They're really hoping to do the bulk of the digging, and we're still kind of evaluating sod. I think we're leading with sod, which requires a tremendous amount of irrigation. But the punchline to all of this is that we will have to wait a couple seasons before we can actually fully utilize those fields again. So we need to let it, like, I'm already hearing some, rumblings, whatever. Anticipate fall of 2027 when those fields will be usable. I mean, they will try to accelerate, but I think at this point, we've invested so much time and money to accelerate it unnecessarily is not great, but I think if we use sod and all the elements align and the irrigation aligns, we may be able to most likely accelerate them both, but they're just giving us sort of that get that on your radar, fall 2027. So those two fields will be on commission for quite a while. We're going to build from the inside out on the track and field, right? We're going to start with the inner, and then we will be laying a track. The big discussion there now is just there are layers deep of original track, concrete base. I'm learning a lot. It looks like we're probably going to go down a little bit of debate. As Lou said, there's good stone. We're not going to come in and replace it with good stone, but we want to go deep enough to really give it a healthy refill with fabric and lining to make the track very soft or, and safe. I don't know, that's what we're use, soft in a good way. Did you want to supplement something?
Yeah, no, you have it correct. So we have actually, our current track was built on top of another track and there's a layer of rubber there that is, when we had it tested, it's no longer good. So we need to go all the way down to the stone base and rebuild.
Yeah. And then obviously we're all up to speed on the lights. We did a presentation to the village board this past week. I learned a ton about lumens. We're very lumen healthy. That was my term. But as always, as part of our board goal, everything is environmentally sound. And I think in total, we would have 5 lights on each corner of the, sort of semi-corner of the track, and then 1 by the long jump, which will potentially be adjusted slightly because of the new parking garage, the bus garage. You might have to do it. So it will be lovely. It's just going to be a project, but I know we're eager to get started. And I know Tom said in his administrative report, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of reallocation of fielding with he's and barred, but I know he's doing his best. That's just a heavy, you know, that's on his part. So thank you, Tom, for all that he does in trying to juggle his sports teams. You know, we got lucky, I think, in the fall, maybe we'll get lucky again. But yeah, we're all gonna have to compromise a little bit because it's, you know, it's an investment in time. You know, they will be beautiful. We will be looking at beautiful fields that we can't use for a while, but we will be able to use eventually. So we'll keep you posted, obviously, on every step as we go. But that's the projected timeline. So I'm excited to get started. And yeah,
Quick question, is there a projected date or season that the track would be able to be used? Do you know that?
Is that closed down the track for the spring?
it's a track, and the track is not usable. Not yet. It's not, they're not, the track and field is not.
Where does track go?
The track is seem like in and around. I think for me, it's still very, so.
Be having a hard time finding a place to consistently practice shots.
I mean, I think you're running in any
Piecemeal, yeah. But, kind of piecing that together.
But I think you're asking, Austin, if like we start the project with the track, you know, I'm saying like, if the field has to come use the track, maybe, I don't know, that's a good question, probably.
Spring 2027, is there gonna be a track?
Yes, it'll be in place, yes, possible. I don't know enough about the track and field events to know what has to go on the field itself. I'm not well versed in that, but the track should be open.
On the soccer fields, they're not gonna be available till, you said fall of 27. So for next year, are we gonna have to do all the games away? Is there an option of using, lining the football field, barring BART facility?
Football field, that's good.
That's-
The field's behind, the
Yeah.
field's behind. Yeah.
I'll make my point short. Is there a way we can have home games somehow here in Red Hook somewhere? Like in Bar?
This was why we proposed all that stuff way back then, because we don't want people to do some of that. So yeah, people will be away. And obviously, if Bart has the availability, other than that, no.
I thought Rhinebeck, if they're not using their field, could we rent it?
I think, Tom calls all the neighbors that we have, these great Kingston, Rhinebeck, he reached out to everybody, and I think he tries to get whatever he can. They were really gracious about football season this year. The Dean Stadium to allow us to use that, that worked out really well. So he, you know, he's well aware of the timelines and knows that that's something that needs to be arranged.
Not that I personally don't want to drive an hour and a half every day.
All right, any other, comments or discussions? For members? And then that brings us to the Dutchess County Board, board candidate nominations. And you received two letters, one from, Mark Fleischhauer and from Julie Moran. Do we have to? First and second thought?
No.
No, okay, all right.
Yeah, they're just, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
They should have put a font in the past. I think we've almost always had candidates come.
Yeah.
Okay,
And then the other meetings were currently in
okay, yeah, so, yeah, I do remember him coming, that was Mark Fleisch, right, you're right.
I believe we attended the Dutchess County School Board, so we met them in the next.
Okay. Just rotate or something.
Are we selecting both?
There's two open seats.
So we can nominate both.
So both of them are not. Okay, so that brings us to policy review and approval on.
Is it a vote on this nomination?
I don't think so.
So, I'm just, gonna paraphrase real quickly, Jim, already did this, but, Second reading policy 1620. The first read to policy 5741 is on alcohol testing, and then the first read of policy 7210, student evaluation promotions. Could I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And that brings us to, the business consent agenda, items 1 through 16. Can I get a motion in a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, we have personnel forbidden. So we are holding out in the fire.
That was the school calendar that we voted on.
Okay. I just need to check. And so we're doing all of them, right? All right, so now we're going to, do, personnel, items, 2 through 8. Okay. All those in favor, can I get a motion and a second? No, I'm all. A motion and a second. Motion. All in favor?
So just want to congratulate some of our retirees, Nancy Jansen, longtime special education teacher. We thank them for her service and her dedication to inclusive learning and being a leader. She was also department chair. Deb Taylor, one of our aides in our school district, I believe it's 28 years. We thank her. She's formed wonderful relationships with the students and the faculty and staff. As well as we have a retirement and bus garage for James, where he's working our bus. He's worked as bus driver for 10 years, so we really appreciate his dedication to safety and transporting our students. And so congratulations all.
All right, that brings us to our second recognition of visitors. If you would like to speak, we ask that you come to the podium and state your name. And to keep our comments to the table. Anyone? All right, I motion.
Wait. We do have to do that for the BOCES. We have to second or vote.
We do have.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so let's get back to the votes.
It's past my bedtime. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
You're forgiven.
All right, so can I get a motion and a second on Mr. Fleischhauer and Ms. Moran for the vote of donation? All those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. All right, motion, to adjourn. I've already did second resolution. All those in favor?
It's way past my bedtime. Hi, how are you? So if you could sign that. Fill out those 3 spots there. This is it. How exciting is this?
It's so exciting.
It's actually. I know.